Clive, welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I've been really excited. I mean, yeah, when I spoke with your team, they were brilliant in helping organise this, and I've got about 1 million questions to ask you. So looking forward to getting into it. How's everything been anyway? Before we jump into it, how are you? How's your life been impacted by everything that's going on?
How's my life been impacted? I mean, like everyone, it's not been great, but I kind of do four things. I've been able to do all four things based from home. So, including to do a lot more of this now. I used to do, I still do a lot of kind of business talks and presentations, and we've been able to do those online. So it's a case of actually working out how to do it. So, back in February, I'd done the odd online presentation and talk. Now it's kind of the bread and butter. So it's understanding how you do it and how you do it well and all this sort of stuff. So no, it's been good. As I say, this is my office in the garden. I've got my golf net right outside. So I've hit more golf balls than most people for the last 10 months. Mainly out of frustration than anything else. So no, I'm lucky. We got a nice garden, so I just know to play around there. So
nice.
Okay.
What's your club of choice when you're playing in the net? What are you picking up usually?
7-iron. 7-iron is one of the go-to clubs. So it's my club. It goes about 150, 155 yards. I mean, technology. I've got a TrackMan system. So, I mean, which is incredible. You hit a ball and you see the ball on the computer and you see where it's gone, how far it's gone, the spin rate. So there's a lot of learning in golf as well. So I'm lucky I can use the technology out the back there as well.
Oh, amazing. No, that sounds great. So look, Clive, let's get straight into it. I'd love to start with talking about winning. So many of us want to win, aspire to win, or do as best as we can in whatever it is that we're doing. And in order to win, we need to perform well. And in order to perform well, we need to be incredibly well prepared. And so many times people just see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see everything that goes on underneath the surface. So I'd be really fascinated to hear from you how we can best prepare and looking at examples from your life. And if we kind of address this from a macro level, so perhaps how we would prepare for, in your example, like a big tournament, for example, so leading up to that, and then how we would prepare on the actual day of a performance.
Okay, well, that's a lot to talk about there. I guess what I'm saying, Mark, in terms of whenever I talk about performance, I always start off with this very simple line that, I mean, I'm obviously involved in rugby and team sports, but I also play golf and various bits and pieces. But I think the most important thing to understand is from a team point of view, in terms of preparation, that my favourite line is always that great teams made of great individuals. And I'll repeat that, great teams made of great individuals. I think sometimes in the sporting world and definitely the business world, people seem to think, there's some magic solution to actually getting this team working together and they do all this sort of stuff. I think that's a huge mistake. I guess what I do, I focus all my mind on the individual. My role as a coach in rugby or a leader in business is to make you better at what you actually do individually, because everyone's different. And what I basically learned to do, that if I can make sure every individual in my team is operating at his or her optimal level, the kind of the teamwork becomes a lot easier to actually do. So, and of course you can't BS people. They know whether you're delivering or not. If I'm saying, okay, Mark, I'm going to do this for you, we're trying to make you better at what you actually do, they'll know whether you're delivering or not. And that's, to me, is the whole secret to this. So if you get individual plans, the team stuff is a lot easier to actually do. And in quite simple facts, in a rugby team, you're looking around the changing room, and you look at every individual, and you at the very top level, I'm trying to create gold medal winners. So I want to know, is Jason Robinson the best fullback in world rugby? Is Martin Johnson the best second row? Is Johnny Wilkinson the best number 10? And looking back to even 2003, which I obviously remember well, I'd say we probably had 8 gold medal winners in that team. So if you're sitting there with a team of 8 of the best players in the world in that team, that you've helped develop over a period of time, the team stuff becomes quite straightforward. You can't shortcut that. So I spent a huge amount of time on trying to create individuals, and I have the kind of a process to do that, and I'll run through it very quickly. I have 3 key things when I look at, and I do this today. This is not kind of theory or going back to 2003. When I'm coaching any individual, whether it's a golf coach, a rugby player, a chief executive, I'm looking at 3 key things to make you better as an individual. 1, I'm trying to find out, are you really teachable and coachable? What I mean by that is, have you got the ability to learn and take on knowledge? Because this is going to be a 2-way thing. So when I say great teams made of great individuals, yes, you're an individual, and I'm going to put everything into you to try and make you better at what you do. We're going to have all this sort of plans. There's got to be a two-way thing. I've got to know this is coming back from you as well, because especially in today's society with the internet, there's no excuse for people not learning or taking time to actually find out things themselves. Often I meet with people, and they show me great plans of HR and training that they've got from their company, which is great. So if you're lucky enough to work for a company that invests in you, big tick. But I always kind of park that. I want to know, what do you do? What else do you do individually outside of what your company gives you to actually try and improve yourself as a player or a business person? So the first thing is about being teachable. It's simple as that. And I use this an acronym: you're either a sponge or a rock. So I need people with sponges between their ears, not rocks between their ears. And what I've found, again, Mark, with pure experience in sport and business, sometimes the longer you're in sports teams and businesses, you can drift into being a rock. In other words, you become a bit of a know-it-all, bit of unteachable, uncoachable, and just a bit of a know-it-all. And if you've got one of those in your team, you're going to struggle if you're trying to create the optimal level. And I think the thing I'll just stress on this is that you never one thing or another. Normally, when you join businesses and sports teams, you normally start off being a sponge, and you like listening to things like this just in case you're going to learn something. But you can just drift in a bit of rocket sometimes. So the most important, you get that person back, because you can drift between one. We've all done it. I've done it myself. But you just got to keep people really passionate for learning. This is what I call being teachable, or being what I call a student of the game. That's the first thing I look for, and I'm always checking that that's happening. It's a two-way process. The second thing I look for is how people can play under pressure or perform under pressure. I think pressure is a great word, and I'll come to that, I guess, later on in our discussion. But because you can coach that as well, I'd be very clear. You can actually teach people how to play and perform under pressure. And I think pressure is a great word. I think it sets people apart. I mean, anyone could hit a 6-foot putt in the back garden, but can you do it when you're for the Masters? That's the key thing, and that's what separates sort of good people from great people. And the last thing I look for is just quite simply people's attitude. I think attitude is a great word, and what is attitude? And it's not a case of just having the word attitude. I break attitude down into 10 words, 10 sort of subsections of attitude, which I can kind of measure. I can do a whole talk on attitude alone. But quite simply, I'm making sure my attitude is still at the right level. But most important, the person I'm working with, their attitude's at the right level. So, in terms of coaching an individual, are you teachable? Are you coachable? And this is going to be a two-way process, and we're going to put learning at the heart of it. Are you able to perform under pressure? And we do a lot of work on how you actually teach pressure and what you actually do. And is your attitude, right up there in terms of what we're actually doing? And are you really, and one of the definitions of being obsessional about this, I think obsession is a great word. Are you absolutely, is this what you want to do, really, basically? And I like to work with people who are totally obsessional. I think obsession is a good word, not a bad word. I think it's a great word. I make no bones about it. I'm completely obsessional about beating the person in that room I'm competing with. But I live a normal life, got a great family, 3 great kids. So it's not been some sort of monster. It's just actually saying, I'm just very clear what I'm doing here. And, I can think of nothing worse than waking up one morning and finding the person I'm competing with, John Mitchell, Eddie Jones, whoever I'm competing with, has thought about something I'd not thought about. That would drive me crazy. The whole idea is getting ahead of them all the time. So that's the big thing to me, I guess, Mark, in terms of, what you call the macro or micro level. I go back to the individual, and then you can do the micro with the actual individual. And that'll create the team performance. That's how I've always worked.
It's so fascinating to hear. I mean, as so often happens when we listen to these sorts of things, you relate it back to yourself. And I can certainly see at times in both my sporting career and business career where I went from having a sponge between the ears to rocks. Yeah. So how would you advise people to operate within a system? Because I think that my perception at some stage shifted to it being more of a limitation to operate in a system or this corporate world or even the rules within sports games. So how would you advise people to get the best out of themselves when they're working within a system and often someone else's system?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it comes back to really the sponge and rock. I'd be actually saying to them very, very clearly, okay, the system's there and we can't change the system. So I've got to work within the system. But yes, if I'm getting all this information and input from my line manager or my boss or my leader, great. But I'm also going to do it myself. I am going to take personal responsibility for my own learning and own development. But I'm not going to rely on this person. And what I found, if I have that person working with me, that's fantastic. So I will know, and without people, brown nosing you. But we had a lovely saying in I use all the time. There's no such thing as a dumb idea. I actually like the dumb ideas. Where you and me are going to fall out, if you've got an idea and you're a little bit scared or worried about saying it, especially in front of others, because you're open to ridicule or banter and all that sort of stuff, we are going to fall out. I said, let me decide whether it's a good idea or not. And I love ideas. And that's with the culture you've got to foster. And also you've got to be confident as an individual within that system that you can put forward ideas and not worry about any retribution or ridicule that you might get. And that does happen. And it's easy to say this. So as part of a leader, you've got to create that culture where people are confident to put forward ideas. But also within that system, even if the leader isn't kind of saying the things I'm saying here, you've got to be doing all your research and putting forward in your own way how you can actually get improvement within yourself as an individual, but as a team. But I'm always trying to improve individuals, and that is my job as a coach or manager. And there's business and sport the same thing, Mark. I'm often said, well, people say sport is different than business. It's absolutely not. I've worked in both worlds, and I still work in both worlds. Business to me is about delivering results through people. I repeat it. You're delivering results through people. That's what sport's about. Delivering results through people. Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool deliver results through those people. The Alison Rose, the chief executive of NatWest Bank, is delivering results through people. It's no different. You just working in different industries. And when you understand that, then it becomes quite obvious. But I really try and put the sport back on the individual.
Yeah.
And what I found, if I deliver for you as the person working for me, and they will know, you will know, you'll get it back in tons and tons and tons. They'll deliver back. It's when you don't deliver and you expect them to do stuff, you get this conflict that doesn't actually work. So I think systems are good. Most businesses, sports teams need systems. You need organizations. You need culture. You need values. But there's always room for the individual to work within that, and you've got to find your own way of actually doing that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I could feel that actually, as you were saying, particularly the part about when people deliver for you, you feel almost indebted to a degree, don't you? That you want to be able to repay the favor and repay the faith. If you were to give one or two examples of how you looked to develop someone like a Johnny Wilkinson, what sort of stuff would you look to do with him?
Well, you look at the individual. Let's take Johnny. Johnny Wilkinson first came to me. I first saw Johnny when he was about 16 years old. I think he's still the youngest player to play for him. We capped him when he was 17 or 18. He was a very, very young player. So Johnny was amazing. I mean, I'll never ever say anything against Johnny Wilkinson. He's an all-time kind of hero of mine. Just the best player to ever work with. Fantastic. But when he first came in, just simple things. I mean, you can imagine Johnny, who's the most modest guy I've ever kind of met, really, considering his talent. When he first came into the team, he was really kind of almost scared, because you're in the room and you got Martin Johnson, Lawrence Dallaglio, all these tough nuts. Johnny's an 18-year-old schoolboy. So you think everyone just gets on with each other. He's sitting, you can see he's terrified. So, and he's playing in the key position. He's playing in the quarterback, the number 10 shirt. I've got to have this guy absolutely confident, speaking, leading. And we had to do a lot of work on his communication skills. We brought in media people, not to teach him how to do the media, just to really how to stand in front of a bunch of players and say what he was saying. So we did a lot of work on that, just in terms of his own personal skills. And he kind of loved it, because I said, look, I'm terrified of speaking to Martin Johnson. Don't worry, we're in the same team here. So you've got to be confident. We've got to do a lot of work on that. So you don't blind yourself. I brought in some of the really best people to start to train and work on it. If you get back on the rugby side, obviously he was a great kicker of the ball, but we hired a guy called Dave Allred, an absolute specialist kicking coach, the best kicking coach in the world with that, and he still is. And we took his kicking to a whole new level, and he loved it. I mean, him and Dave Allred, I mean, they were like the odd couple. They were in heaven if they're out on the rugby pitch, pouring the rain, no one else there, just the two of them with their flipping flasks and their sandwiches. They'd go for hours out kicking, just kicking. And even in match weeks, I can remember going over and saying, guys, you've got to stop. You've got to stop. There's a game Saturday. No, we've got to do this, and this. They're completely obsessional. But we started bringing people like that, so bringing expertise to make him better. And does he deliver back to you? Absolutely. So, we did. And it's like saying, the big thing to me is, can you teach David Beckham how to take penalties? Yes. The moment you think as a coach or leader, I can't make you better, I think you're going to have a problem, because the person will say, well, I still need help. Johnny Wilkinson has always needed coaching, his help, and he was an absolute sponge, as you can imagine. And he's the nicest guy in the world, but behind the scenes, he's tough. He demands results, he demands perfection, and all this stuff, and that rubbed off on the whole team. But I like to think we gave it to him. And all the coaches are brought in, specialist coaches, making him better at his game. And it's typical Johnny. I remember Jason Robinson came into the team, the guy who came in for Rugby League, who was, again, one of the best he's ever did in terms of strengthening the team. Jason came in from Rugby League, and we knew him from Rugby League. He was a superstar in Rugby League, but everyone was a bit, well, how will he fit in? But he started doing these footwork drills. And all of us, literally, we just went, oh my God, look at this. His footwork drills were a different league. His footwork, and Johnny came up to me after and said, well, that's the marker now. My footwork's going to be better than Jason Robinson's. And then saying, how do you do this? How do you do this? So you see it in the individuals. Working with Johnny Wilkinson is a totally two-way thing. He's always coming with new thoughts, new ideas. But when he saw something like Jason Robinson's footwork, he was saying to me, we're so far behind. My footwork has got to be as good as Jason Robinson. How do we do this now? So we started thinking about that. So it's just things like that, so it actually kind of works. So I like to think all of them, every individual, and that's why rugby is a great game, because it's from Johnny Wilkinson, who's sort of 12, 13 stone, dripping wet, and then you're playing alongside a 14, a 20 stone prop. Props, every position is different. So trying to make them better players was quite challenging, but that was what we loved about it. That's the same in your office or your business. Everybody's different. Every individual sitting there. That's right. I'm a huge believer in marketing diversity and inclusion. The more diverse your team can be from a business point of view, in terms of gender and race and the better it is. There's no doubt. The more diverse your team can be, the better the ideas come through. And that's what I think rugby offers in many ways, a very diverse team in terms of their backgrounds, their ideas, and what you actually do.
Yeah, that's really coming across as well. I guess that, when people like Jason Robinson come in, they set a new standard and everyone's competitive and wants to be, as you said, that gold medal in their position.
Yeah.
So then they all strive to be better individually. And it's interesting you were saying about ideas as well, because I've certainly been in environments where the importance is placed on seniority rather than ideas. So I think that's such an important point that you made there.
I think just on that, Mark, I mean, that's really important, because I think when you first start a business or a sports team, you're the lead, or you think it is my job to come up with new ideas and lead. That is so wrong. I always pride myself on not coming up with new thoughts or new ideas. What I pride myself on is creating a culture of people where new ideas are coming in from all over the place. What I pride myself on is going, that's a good idea. And if that's a good idea, in sporting terms, that's going to make the boat go faster. What I think I'm quite good to do is then put it in place, making it happen, getting the budget, getting approval, whatever. But if that idea is going to make the boat go faster, going to give us a better chance of winning a World Cup, winning gold medals in the Olympics, we have to do it. So your job as a leader then is to get it done. Your job as a leader is not necessarily come up with all the flash new ideas. I've kind of learned to do this, and certainly when I first started in my business world, I thought it was all down to me. I had to think of all the ideas. It's not. You just got to listen and have a whole bunch of sponges in your room who are confident, and because they all want to get better. They all want to create work in the right team and all this sort of stuff. But you just got to listen and really listen. And this is what I'm saying. There's no such thing as a dumb idea, and it'd be amazing that sometimes an idea could come from the Johnny Wilkinson who's been in the room, 10 minutes. It could be someone who's just come straight from school or university, new to your business. Do not think the killer idea can't come from someone who's just walked in the door. And as I say, if it's going to make the boat go faster, your job as a leader is to move heaven and earth to make it happen, because the players will know, wow, okay, he's delivered on this, we've done this. That's how it works. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's absolutely amazing. I think there's a power in the naivety, isn't there? Like you said, the first person through the door, like their first time.
Totally.
Clive, I'd love to hear from you where banter and humour and fun fits into the seriousness of trying to win things like the World Cup and be the best in the world at your particular position or your sport, because there is a seriousness around doing that. There was a lovely part in your book, I listened to your audio book this week, just gone, where you mentioned someone, I can't remember which player it was, but someone put their hand up or interrupted you during a talk and said they'd rather have Jonah Lomu in the change room than Austin Healey, I think it was at the time, or something like that.
It was Will Greenwood.
Was it well? Okay. So I'm just interested to know from you, as the leader who's trying to build this culture and hold it all together and get the messages across, like, when is the right time to do that and when is the wrong time to do that?
Oh, listen, Mark, I mean, again, it's a good question, but quite difficult to answer. What I believe is you can't manufacture it.
Mm.
You know, and I don't actually, you know, I see some of these team days and away days that businesses do, and I'm just going that kind of. I wouldn't like to do that. I don't like forced fun. If I'm trying to say, and I see sometimes, especially in the business world, probably more than the sporting world, where people are kind of, you know, you're doing things because they're trying to create this team and all this stuff. I think, you know, banter humor is excellent, but there's a line. There's a line, and there's a lot of common sense in this. But as we know, a lot of people haven't got common sense. So I think it's a case of, you know, really understanding. When Will Greenwood said that, for example, that was awesome, because I put, we were playing the All Blacks next day, so it doesn't get much bigger. We're playing the All Blacks at Twickenham. I can remember it now. And I did my normal. I put my flip chart up. I had all our team, all their team, and it was my kind of the Friday night. We always make this video of the week. It's a great meeting. I always love this meeting. I remember saying to them, "This is the All Blacks," but I just want to say, you know, hand on heart, there's not a single player in their team that I'd want to sit in this room or get into our team. And there's like silence in the room. I thought it was great. And Greenwood literally put his hand up, and I said, "Yes, Will," expecting some marvelous comment to come through. He stood up. He said, "Look, Coach Clive, we're totally with you. We're totally with you. I think I could speak on behalf of the whole team. We'd probably rather have Jonah Lomu than Austin Healey." Because the whole, and I kind of looked at him, and it was one of those magic moments. And it was, and we won the next day. We beat them the next day. It was out, and Healey was awesome because he was playing against Lomu, and it was one of those magic moments that it always turned up the team because he got it spot on. And I just burst out laughing. It was the best thing, one of the funniest things, but it was perfect for that moment in time because I wasn't expecting it. So you can't manufacture it, and some people are good at it, like Greenwood and Healey. These guys, they've got great humour, but I've never had a problem with that at all. It's just common sense. I think you've also got to be careful. If you look at sort of, we come back to diversity, inclusion. You've got to be really careful. Don't assume, you know, because you know we spent a lot of time on that. Because if you just take, for example, the rugby team we had, it wasn't just a bunch of blokes sitting in the room, rugby players. We had my number two was Louise Ramsey, a woman. I really like to get as much women in the environment as I could, in terms of physios, doctors, all this. So often there's women in the room. So you know, we had talks about what was the right language. Even, you know, we didn't want anyone within the room to be upset by anything was said. So you got to actually work on this. But I've you know learned this. The more diverse your team, the better you can do at this, and the more you think about, you know, what you're actually saying. But humour is fundamentally good. A lot, you know, but it is common sense. I'm certainly not the humorous one in the room. I'm not there to make the gags, but I do find some things really. The Greenwood thing was fantastic. One of the best lines I've ever heard. It was spot on. It kind of broke the whole ice of the meeting, really, and it was good.
I think it's amazing because it just does shift the energy when it needs to. Sometimes you were talking about pressure earlier and how it can alleviate pressure and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Clive, you were talking there a little bit about the sort of routine and the video and the preparation in that meeting that you would do before a game, and in that instance, the New Zealand game. What would a typical game look like as far as the day or the 24 hours before you'd actually compete? What would you be doing to get the guys going and get them ready?
Yeah, it was very choreographed. I do like routine. So you know, from the 24 hours beforehand, if we play at Twickenham, we'd obviously go to the stadium, we do our final preparation. But I think that the meetings are quite important. If I just take you through some of the meetings, we'd always meet Friday evening, you know, as a team for literally probably half an hour. I think it was 6:30 before dinner, and that was, we created a video of the week. We had a great video guy who we put it to music, and it was kind of, you know, just the week, say a few words, get all the team leaders saying a few, we just get everyone together really. But the key thing was the next day, you know, and just a couple of things, you know, just even driving to the game. We had the right music on, you know, it was almost choreographed, the whole thing. So there was a lot going on. But actually on the day is interesting because, you know, the changing room, often people say about the changing room, I promise you, at the level I work at, or, you know, that I worked at, or still do, It's not about Churchillian speeches and all this sort of stuff. It's just about getting everyone's head in gear. Because, these are professional athletes, they're brilliant athletes. And we'd always just put 3 reminders on the board. So I had a big whiteboard in the change room, and there was basically 3 key points. And that would be, that's almost our game plan for the week. And it was just really quiet, And what I'm saying to everybody is, it's not time for, you see these movies, every given Sunday and Al Pacino and all this stuff. That's not me, put it that way. I'm kind of going around. All I'm trying to do is get every individual ready, because that time, whether you're kicking off or receiving, and at the start of the game, what's your job, what's your role? Is everyone thinking? So we're doing a lot of that. Then, before we go out, we go to the 3 key points again. Very calm. That's where it's great working with Delalio, Johnson, these guys who captain the team. They loved all this. They didn't want all that either. The interesting thing was half time. Half time was a really interesting thing because I think I was the first person who spent a lot of time on half time. Because half time, you think about it, it's now not an 80-minute game, it's a 40-minute game. You've got 10 minutes in the changing room. You know the score, you know what's happened, far more D. That's really key. So again, we had that 10 minutes was massive because we, again, during the game, or just before the halftime whistle, I'd send a guy called Tony Biscombe, who was an analyst guy, down the change room to put 5 points on the board, or a maximum of 5. It's usually 3 or 4. And that was just the points that I'd learned from that first half of the game. So when the players came in from the first half, they just sit. The first 2 minutes was total silence. Don't want anyone saying a word. Just sit down, take some food on, take some liquid on, read the points. Then what we did, we were the first team ever. We completely changed our strip at half time. And I'll come back to that in a second. So they've got new kit hanging up. So the next 2 minutes they're changing. So taking off their first half kit, putting a brand new kit on for the second half. They then sit down. I go through the 4 or 5 points. I then bring in the captain, Marmon Johnson, and that's nearly it. But that is absolutely key to actually getting this across. And that became a real routine. And there's only a couple of times we've not done that, and I did it on purpose. One was in the quarterfinal against Wales in the World Cup, where we're losing at half time to Wales, where we're red hot favourites to win. My life's on the line. The whole team's, we're about to lose to Wales in the quarterfinals of the World Cup in Australia, where we're red hot favourites. We haven't lost to Wales for years. And we just weren't. We just got it totally wrong. We were not at the races. They were brilliant. I mean, Steve Hansen was their coach. It was a great Welsh team, and they were ahead. And we are copying it. I'm just getting copied. And I, in the change room, I completely lost it on purpose. That was your teacup moment. That was your Ferguson hairdryer moment. You had to make a statement. So I've just gone nuts. My language has gone boom, boom, boom. Fortunately, Johnson backed me up. He just gone crazy. Forget all the changing shirts. Just forget it. Unless we start playing properly, we're going home. And the message had to be clear. Unless we start playing properly, we're going home. Because we were just, we were a better team than them. And we just went crazy in the change room. I made a substitution. I've never subbed a player at half time ever. I had to make a statement. So I took Luger off. So I literally told Dan to get out of the changing room, just leave, get out. Mike, you're on. Kat, you're in the team. And everyone's shocked because they've never seen me like this before. So, you need your routines, which is good, but there's times where you've got to tear it up and just go with your gut emotion about the whole thing. But the change of the shirts was quite interesting because, again, it was somebody's idea because, and that sounds so obvious now, but then it was, so much of this data that England under me were playing better in the first 20 minutes of the game than the first 20 minutes after half time. So that's it. And it was really quite amazing. Part of me is really pleased because you're going, well, great. We're obviously preparing well because our first 20 minutes is really good. But what the hell's happening in the second half? So I literally had a chat with the players and said, what's going on? And someone said, and I don't know who it was, just say it's Austin Healy. Someone just said, shouted out, what we should do is change our shirts at half time. Because we go out at the start of the game, brand new England shirts, all this stuff. We go out, national anthems, boom, boom, boom. Second half, we literally just wander out onto the pitch. We have filthy, dirty clothes. It's bad weather. And the time, I just looked at him and said, "Don't be ridiculous. That's ridiculous." But then I went away and thought, "Hang on, what a simple idea. No one's ever done this before, ever." So I spoke to the players, even the players. I mean, the first like that, he said, "It won't work." I said, "Of course it'll work." But the reason they did it because, well, don't forget, you get 2 sets of shirts. Then, by the way, you get 2 English shirts as opposed to 1. So that ticked the box. And the players thought, "Oh, we're getting 2 shirts now, not 1." So we did this, and it was just amazing. The first time we did it was a bit awkward because you only got 10 minutes. I said, "Leave your socks and boots on. We just change your shorts and your shirts. And we've got to go out and say, right, we just start the game. We go out the same way. Bang, bang, bang. Johnson, you lead the team out. We do all this stuff. And I'll tell you, it just changed the mind. We called it second half thinking. So our half time was all about this game of rugby is now 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes, brand new kit, start again. We know what's going on for what are the 3 or 4 key messages. But the idea didn't come from me, Mark. I promise you, it wasn't my idea. And the first time I thought about it, because I obviously played for England, and I said, well, no, we can't do that. It's ridiculous. We haven't got time. But I thought that was brilliant. It just changed the mindset. It's now a 40-minute game, and we're either winning or we're losing, and so stuff like that can start to change. But that was a classic. There's no such thing as a dumb idea. When we first said it, everyone burst out laughing, and because we've never ever done it before ever. And what happened within 12 months? Every team's copying us, which is brilliant. That's the biggest form of you're doing well when everyone else change their shirts half time, which is great. You're leading, and that's what you want to lead on in all these areas.
That's absolutely superb. It's funny, isn't it? Because there are times when we might have the ability to flip our mindset without any external change, but just having that physical change of putting a different shirt on is a trigger.
I talk to golfers, I thought about golfers, why after 9 holes change your shirt, just wander in, put new shirts on. You see tennis players doing it, not just, I don't think because they're, side of Wimbledon, these guys, Nadal and Federer, and I don't think they do it just because they're sweaty and hot. They do it after so many games. Let's start again, or they're playing badly. I've got to reset. Okay, let's do something. Let's put a new shirt on, put a new racket in your hands, something to get your mind going again, because it can happen.
Yeah,
and you see it in lots of sports now. But at the time it was, and this is going back a long, long time now. But it was fantastic.
I guess we could do the same in a business meeting, just maybe readjust the tie or do something just to shift your physiology slightly.
Think about it, just think it through. Yeah, this is why I love this. No such thing as a dumb idea. It's it's just thinking. Okay, let's take this really seriously. If we really talk about performance here, what will make a difference? What we actually do. That you don't become a great rugby team because you change your shirt at half time. But it's probably one of 100 things we did. When you add all the things together, that's why we did become a great team, because we had the players, we had the coaches, but we didn't have the organisation, and we started to then really take the whole team to a whole new level in terms of what we actually did, and that's what happened.
I'm absolutely loving this, by the way. This is amazing. What a way! This is my last episode to record in 2020, so it'll go out in January. But yeah, it's what a way to finish. So it's starting to make sense now. All the success that you've had. What was it like winning the World Cup? Because let's be honest, you took on the team as a team that wasn't anywhere near the best in the world, and you developed it into such a fantastic, successful team. Just what was it like? What was the day like? It was actually my birthday in 2003, 22nd of November. Yeah.
How old were you on that? How old were you on that day?
I think I must have been 16.
Oh wow! So you remember it well then? Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the day was. The day was quite scary, if I'm honest, because we'd arrived at the World Cup as the #1 ranked team, favourites to win it, and we're now we're in the final, and it was a dream final to me. I'd lived in Australia for 5 years. Got married in Australia. My first 2 kids were born in Australia, so I kind of loved Sydney and Australia. So I'm back home really. I was totally comfortable being in Australia. So my dream final was always to play Australia. That was the team I wanted. Didn't want to play the All Blacks. If I had a dream final in Sydney, it'd be Australia. So there it is. This is your moment. And this is your day, and it's just quite scary when you wake up in the morning, and obviously your wife's with you and Jane's with me, and you're just looking for, it's either going to be a good day or a bad day, and it's either going to be a very, very good day, or it's going to be a completely very, very bad day, and that is quite scary. And of course, what you're actually going through is there anything else I could have done? What have I done? And you're going through everything about the game. You're trying to prepare for every single eventuality, and it was just one of those, but even going to the game, it started to rain on the coach. The fans were amazing. I mean, there's so many English people there. I mean, they're way over half the stadium had white shirts on in Sydney. So it was incredible. So it was just one of those days. But the key thing to me, we have this saying. Have you heard this saying called teacup, Mark? Did I talk about teacup?
No.
Okay. Let me talk about this because, I said before about, I think I mentioned when we first started speaking about handling pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge pressurized day. So the key thing, what's at stake. It doesn't need me to tell anybody, including myself, what's happening today. But it's how you handle the pressure of the situation. This is something you can coach people. So I use this word to how I coach pressure. If I'm going to coach you how to handle pressure, I use a word called teacup. So think of T-cup, T-C-U-P, teacup. And TCUP stands for Thinking Correctly Under Pressure. So that's the acronym, TCUP, thinking, and the key word is correctly. So when this pressure thing arrives, are you able to still think correctly under pressure? And what it basically does is basically this. The way you coach it is this. What you've done prior to this day is you go through every single scenario that you call pressure. And quite simply, and what I used to do in the team room with the team was, if you just think of this, if I'm up here as a head coach, I'm talking to the players in the team room or an individual, I'd always have three things available with me: a clock, a scoreboard, and a whiteboard. And any meeting, if I'm meeting you, Mark, and just say you're an England rugby player, I just stop the meeting and I'd set up a situation. So say clock, 5 minutes to go in the game. Scoreboard, England 12, Australia 16. So there's 5 minutes to go. We're 4 points down. And then what I do is on the whiteboard, set up a situation. Here's on the pitch. And I just quite simply say, what would you do? So in other words, we're 5 minutes to go, 4 points down. What would we actually do? So I used to do this in the team room, and I'd actually bring a player up. So I just role play for a second. So I said, that's the situation. 5 minutes to go, and I'd have on board a big clock. I have a scoreboard down, a whiteboard, and I bring a player. So Matt Dawson, out you come. So I bring up Dawson. Already that player's under pressure because the whole team's watching him, and I just stand back. What would you do? We're 4 points down. And he'd stand there, he would stand there, and he'd have to then say, well, this is what I actually do. He'd then sit down, get a huge amount of banter with the rest of the team. But quite simply, we would not leave the room until we were all 100% agreement this is what we would do if that was to happen. So this thing about handling pressure is all about trying to predict things. And the data on this, Mark, is really, really great. It just basically says, if you come across something that you've either experienced before, or more importantly, you've thought through, what would I do in that situation? The chances of thinking correctly under pressure are really high. In other words, we've experienced this. Conversely, if you come across something that you define as pressure in like that moment, and you've not thought through what to do, backed up by the most sophisticated data, the chances of thinking correctly under pressure are really low. All these horrendous words kick in: choke, freeze, bottle, rabbits in the headlines. That's what happens when you come across things you've not thought about. What would I do? Or more importantly, you've not experienced them. So our whole world was on TCUP. That whole day was on TCUP. There's everything in place, what we're actually doing. And especially actually during the game, because you're actually trying to work on, so my job in the morning, I'm thinking TCUP. What happens if he's playing badly? He's playing badly. If he's playing well, score, they're winning, we're winning. You're just trying to visualize this whole thing. But most importantly, the team have done this for years and years in advance. It's not just one meeting. You have hundreds and hundreds of situations of TCUP moments. One of them was the drop goal. One of them is what's happened if we're level with a minute to go. Everyone knew how to handle that. But this is TCUP, but it's coaching, and you never stop it. You're always thinking. We right down to, you're traveling to the game, the bus breaks down. What do we do? Is that time of panic? Or no, everything's in place. Do go boom, boom, boom. So forever and a day, you don't say, well, we lost the World Cup final because our bus broke down the way. You say, fine, what happened? We'll handle it. We'll do this, this, and this. And you become really good at handling pressure situations. So that day was just full of pressure situations. I like to say that, myself, the team, everyone handled it really, really well. I can't think of anything I would have done differently, especially during the game, because it's all kicking off. The pressure's mounting. People are screaming at you to make subs, make changes. And I was really looking back now. I watched the game obviously a few times. I was really evaluate your own performance. Did I make the right subs? Did I make the right changes? And I'll mark myself 10 out of 10 on that. I actually think I got it all right on the day, because we didn't put loads of subs on. We didn't change the team like today. Everyone's unloading, checking the whole bench on. I think we had a bench of 7. We put 3 on, so 4 players never got on, despite the fact we went extra time. Because I'm thinking all the time, no, I don't respond to the pressure. Just use your brain. So you've got to stay really calm in this whole thing. So the day was huge. The day was absolutely huge. And despite the referee, it was amazing. I will share with you. Let me share you one thought, because I just thought about this, and this is absolutely true. This should come up that day. We had problems with the referee during the day. Andre Watson didn't have his best game, if I'm being just polite on your podcast. But to just set the scene here, and I just thought of this. Before I went to the World Cup, literally months before, I hosted a dinner at Twickenham, a lunch at Twickenham for the England deaf rugby team. There's an England deaf rugby team. They're amazing guys. The rules are slightly different. There's obviously no whistle. You throw the flag down and stop the game, and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, I've hosted a lunch with the England deaf rugby team. They were just awesome. And I sat with a guy called Ed DeLuca, his name was. He was the captain of the English deaf rugby team. And that was anyway. So to cut that forward now, we're now at World Cup final and all this sort of stuff. So I'm in the coaches box. I'm not allowed on the pitch side. They put all the coaches have got to sit in your own box, your own private box, and you're in this soundproof box. And I had to send messages down on the phone to the guys on the pitch to get messages on the thing, which is really crazy, but that's what it was, a soundproof box. So anyway, during the game, as you can imagine, it was all kicking off between Andre Watson, and to say my language was colourful, but in the confines of the box, it was all very quiet. So I'm like losing the box. I'm screaming Andre Watson, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, cut a long story short, we win the World Cup, as you know. I get back, I literally got thousands of letters from people and all sorts of stuff. I remember got this one from Ed DeLuca, the captain of the England deaf rugby team, and I've got it somewhere in my office here. And it said, "Dear Clive, just big congratulations on winning the World Cup." And all this sort of stuff, and thank you for hosting us for our lunch. It was a highlight of the day. We all watched the game together, and I just want to point out that we all agree with your views on Andre Watson. be very, very careful. We've never heard of lip reading. So he said, and I just burst out laughing. He said, we all totally agree with your views on Andre Watson. Be very, very careful. You never heard of lip reading. P.S. Can I become your first lip reading coach? Because I can also tell you what Eddie Jones was saying in his dugout at the same time. That's great man.
That's brilliant. It's great. You see people now, don't you, doing it like that?
Yeah, people doing this. Even football, especially football, is very yeah. They're just trying to make sure people just can't do what they're saying. But I thought it was hilarious. And to be fair, if I was ever published what I said about Andre Watson during that game, I wouldn't be speaking to you today, I don't think. My language was not quite colourful at the time. So,
I think you could be forgiven, given the circumstances.
There you go. So lip reading coaches, that's the next big thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's so incredible to hear. I mean, one of the things I really wanted to ask you actually was about achievements and how we remember them and how our memories perhaps change or get distorted over time, because I think I've found, even doing this, I've had some milestones this year with I've had my first child. My daughter was born earlier this year. I've left the corporate world finally to pursue this full time, and we just did the 100th episode and of the podcast, and even like looking back at pictures or listening back to the podcast, you feel kind of detached, or I don't know. I can hear my voice, but I don't sometimes recognize it as me. So I just wonder with someone like yourself, with the achievements on the scale that you've had, like winning the World Cup, like how do those memories change over time, if at all?
I don't think that's a good question. It's interesting with lockdown. Funny enough, I did actually watch. I've only watched the World Cup final probably twice, all the way through. Obviously, seen the drop goal a few times. But on during lockdown, I had a chance to actually sit down and watch the whole game properly, because ITV was showing them, and they showed the whole game during lockdown. And I watched this whole game, and it was really interesting because I back to learning. I just went through the game again and watching it, and I was really, really interested to see the decision making on the pitch from the players, because I knew what was happening. Was it a good decision, bad decision? Because we didn't play that well, to be honest, but because the pressure was huge. But I often say that, but actually looking back now, what I actually think we did play amazingly well. Because I've often said, well, we didn't play that well because we should have beaten them by more. We should have. But looking back now, when you think we're playing away from home, you're playing in Australia, you're giving them all the advantages. In rugby, whether you like it or not, referees tend to go with the home team, which Andre Watson definitely did. So everything's against you. The pressure is huge. Australia are a good team. They're beating the All Blacks in the semi-final. Eddie's their coach. But we won. So the more I think about it, the way we handled the pressure that day was absolutely fantastic. So that's, to me, is England's best ever game at any time in the whole history of the game. So to deliver that result on that day was phenomenal, based on everything was against us, basically. And to actually play so well. At the time, afterwards, I was thinking we didn't play that well, but we did play well. And the decisions, from the bench to during the game were fantastic. The final drop goal almost summed up the whole sort of what we were all about. We had this saying, and we got this by the Royal Marines. We went down to work with the Royal Marines, and they were great to work with. And what I learned from the Royal Marines was very simple. When you cross that white line, in other words, when you go to war, doesn't matter what happens on the pitch, as long as you come back and you cross that white line and you got more points than them, that's all that matters here. And that was a real mindset shift to me, because that's what you want to learn about, thinking and leadership. Go and work with the Royal Marines. I mean, these are amazing, because these people, the Royal Marines, for example, their average age is 21, 22. They're young men. They've not experienced this stuff. Just like our players going to Australia, we've never experienced it before. But we did so much work in the classroom, teacup, that we learned from the Marines. And quite simply, I always said, it doesn't matter how you do it, you've got to come off with more points than them. And like the Marines, you've got to get in the helicopter. As long as you get back on the helicopter having won, life's fine. That's what you do. So that was huge. So you can learn. So I went back and went through the whole game and what we did. I think what we did badly, looking back, was actually handling winning, and which is quite interesting in subject in itself, because if someone had said to me that night that 6 months later you won't be working with the England rugby team anymore, you'd be working in football, I'd have think someone's had too many beers. And afterwards we all kind of fell out. When I say all, but the players were great. But I kind of had a bit of a major fallout with the board over lots of things, and ended up leaving and resigning. So I don't think we handled winning very well, because we never won before. We never experienced it before. We had such a process in place to win it. And looking back now, I've probably done a lot of things differently than that. But that's you move on. And what I've kind of prided myself on always is not looking back. I moved on. I got an amazing. I had a job with Southampton Football Club. I was director of football for a year there. Was about to become a professional football coach. And interesting enough, I'm a fully qualified football coach. Got all my UEFA badges. I've not got a single qualification to coach rugby. So it's quite interesting. So I did all my badges, but then we won the Olympic bid, and I was offered this job as director of sport for Team GB for 3 Olympic games. So you kind of move on. And what I've always I say to my kids, I've never planned my career. It's kind of happened in sort of 7-8 year chunks. But what I've been lucky enough that when an opportunities come, and the grass isn't always green. I think I've been lucky. I've taken those opportunities and never look back. And whilst I'm hugely proud, and we still speak a lot about 2003, I'm equally proud of what I did. At Southampton, I was only there for a year, but I was about to move into football as the manager. But I was really proud of what we did the Olympic team. That was amazing what we did with those guys. I did 3 Olympic games. So you kind of move on, and that's what I've always prided myself on doing.
You said you didn't plan your career, but do you have like a particular goal setting routine or something that you go through in order for you to reach the sort of heights that you've reached?
Yeah, I definitely I like goal setting within that job, but I've never actually said, well, I'm going to do this for 4 years and move on, or 6 years and move on, or 12 months, whatever. I kind of just throw the kitchen sink at it, and I just think I've always been dead lucky on this respect. I've never thought about. I can honestly say, when I left university, I worked for Xerox for 8 years. So I've worked in, because the game was amateur, so I worked for Xerox for 8 years, including 5 in Australia, where I lived out there. Then I set up my own small leasing and finance company. I also ran for 8 years. So I had 16 years in business before I became the first full-time professional coach of the England rugby team. And that was the learnings in working at Xerox, but most importantly, running my own small company. They were the best learnings of running a rugby team, far better than me playing for England or doing any coaching awards or badges. Running a small business, making tough decisions, handling winning, handling losing. That was the best sort of skill set to actually run the rugby team, because the rugby team was no different than the leasing and finance company I was running. So that's how I kind of work on that. But it comes back to the individual. I'm just trying to make every individual better at what they actually do.
It's interesting you said, I didn't realise you'd been that long in business as well. Of course, the game was amateur, so you were playing and working at the same time.
Yeah,
I'd be keen to hear your thoughts about leadership specifically. And you hear this phrase about the carrot or the stick. You throwing incentives in front of people to do the job for you and getting them to chase that, or are you hitting them with a stick? Do you think there's an alternative way? Is there a third option?
I think I've described what I do. I just think leadership is about trying to make every individual better. I don't like the word, Mark. I just say I don't like the word. Motivation is a word. I think you are there to motivate the team, but I never wake up in the morning saying I'm going to motivate the team today. Motivation just comes by all your actions. and just the players, the people working for him, they'll know, is he delivering or not? And I've just found through experience, if you're really delivering for them, the team will be fine. The team stuff takes care of itself. It's whether when you take shortcuts, they will know, the individuals know, the team will know if you take any shortcuts. So it's not about taking shortcuts as the actual leader. And I think, there's a big difference between a leader and being a manager. And that's the big thing. You as a leader, you are there to put in new thoughts, new ideas, make things happen, and make the boat go faster, doing things that are innovation. That's what I love doing. A manager is there to manage the process already been put in place by the leader. There's a big difference between leadership and management. And the leader's got to have both skills. So at times you're managing the process, but you're there to lead. And I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing to say about that. But as I say, there's no such thing as a dumb idea. I'm a complete sponge. I'd get on the plane tomorrow if I could, fly anywhere in the world. If I thought I had the slightest chance of me becoming a better business person, coach, I'd do it. The moment you stop that passion or obsession for getting better, you're going to come second, and no one remembers who's came second.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's funny because Take Flight in this podcast is so much of it is finding what our purpose is or our passion and pursuing that. Clive, I'd love to know as a sort of final question, what's been the highlight for you? Like when you look back, what have been some of the sort of standout moments
in my life?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it sounds, and I'm not trying to sound a bit glib here, but certainly when you have kids, that made I went to Australia with Jane, who's my girlfriend at the time. We had our first kid over Haswick with Xerox. We had amazing. I love Australia. I love Sydney. We weren't married, and we had our first baby. Jess Woodward was born in Manly. That was a really defining. I can still remember now. It was a kind of defining moment. So you just kind of go, okay, it's time to grow up now. You got to kind of. And that made a huge difference in a totally positive way. I mean, I wasn't too close to my parents. I won't go down that line, but I wasn't too close to them. But when I had three kids, Jess and Joe were both born in Manly. Jess was the first, and Freddie. I pride myself on being really close to my three kids. But certainly, when Jess and Joe came along in Sydney and Freddie when we came back, that was the actual moment. And they've been great. I'm now granddad. Jess is. Zeffie Woodward Jones is born about a year and a quarter ago, so kind of moves on. But I think that was the biggest thing. And what it's interesting is I'm often asked about families and work-life balance. I can be very clear. I have zero work-life balance. I've never understood that question for me, because I'm not going to start lecturing people about work-life balance. I do what I do. So I never woke up in the morning thinking, I'm going to work today. But what I've done is engage my family, my kids, Jane, my wife, everything I do. I show them what I do, I'm involved in what I do, and and that's work for me. And they, there was this great interview. I think Jess was about 15, and I'd kept her away from the media. But someone said, "We'd like to interview your daughter." So, gone, cool, okay. And she was big in drama. Of course, she loved all this stuff, and. So she did this interview, and the guy came to the house, and I was right in the background, just listening but not listening, not trying to interfere. And she was amazing about it. Was just saying, she said, look, sometimes it's tough. Dad's a high profile. We copied at school when England lose, and all this sort of stuff, and some of the stuff you're in the press, and all this stuff. So she said, well, and we have this saying, it's a family saying, and she said it. She said, the upside of Dad doing what he does far outweighs the downside. We get to go on nice holidays and all this sort of stuff, and she just looked at the camera and said, "Hey, how many kids have Johnny Wilkinson for tea?" And that wasn't choreographed. And of course, literally about 3 weeks beforehand, Johnny Wilkinson would come for tea, because I used to like the players around my house, and I was in the kitchen. I was seeing that Johnny was probably 19. So he's far closer to Jess, who was 15 or 16. So they're, of course, getting on the house on fire. When she just said, "Hey, how many kids have cooks at the tea?" So, and that was the kind of the thing. So, I just think that sums it up to me. I think having kids for me certainly was a big kind of moment to kind of grow up and kind of take some responsibility and make sure you kind of do everything right by these three, which hopefully I've done, and we're very close as a family.
Oh, thanks, Clive. That's amazing to hear. Like, I think, yeah, keeping an eye on what's actually important. Given I'm starting this and putting so much energy into it, and I've got a 6-month daughter, and
Yeah, I just
sometimes I get distracted. So
yeah, but no, I just think it's great to be distracted, but you kind of switch on, switch off, but you just don't keep them apart. Let them in, so they'll know what you're doing then, and they can relate to you being stressed and stomping around and chucking things around, and just get them involved in what you're doing.
yeah,
And
gives you an excuse to be in a bad mood.
because they'll understand it, they get it, they'll understand the stuff if you involve them,
Mm.
and But I've never really understood this work-life balance, and I have a great, make no bones about it. I've got a really great life in terms of the balance between play a lot of golf, family, working hard, and traveling. Which we kind of miss at the moment because what's going on. That's been the big thing that's really I've missed, the ability to travel, which I never take for granted. And I'm involved in a ski academy in the south of France called Apex Trainer 100. I'm the director of sport down there, so spend a lot of time in France now, which I've been unable to do since all the lockdown stuff, which has been kind of not great. Hence, my golf net behind me is getting a pounding at times. And they have to say, "Don't go, Dad's in the golf net. Keep away from it." I'm sweating.
Oh, Clive, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much. We're just sort of coming up to the last couple of minutes, so I'll just thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all the advice. It's been such a pleasure, and yeah, I'll stay in touch with the team as well. If there's anything I can ever help or support with what you're doing in the future, I'd love to.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. Say hi to your dad.
Yeah, I will do. I will
tell your listeners that we're at. I was at Loughborough University with your dad, so
yeah,
that dates me as well.
Small world.
All
Thanks,
right.
Clive. Have a great Christmas, and yeah, speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers, Clive.
Bye bye.